Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app.
First Sentier Investors are a global asset management group managing $247.3 billion of assets as of the 30th September 2021. They have 17 independent teams operating across equities, fixed income, listed and direct infrastructure and multi-asset, led by principles of responsible investment and stewardship. They are home to FSSA Investment Managers, an Asian and global emerging markets equities investor. Stewart Investors, a pioneer in emerging market equities and sustainable investing, and Real Index Investments, a systematic equities manager.
Welcome back to the XY Advisor Podcast. I'm Fraser Jack, and today I'm joined by Rachel O'Connor. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Or should I say welcome back to the podcast? You were on a couple of years ago.
I was about probably 2.5 years ago with Ben Nash.
Yes. One of the early series that we did, I think, on Plan, Produce and Profit by memory.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
There you go. Well, welcome back to the podcast. I think we might actually start going back in time. Actually, let's start with your business now. Tell us about your business now. Just explain what you've got.
2.5 years ago, I started my business, Flourix Wealth. I work mostly with women, basically, helping women to manage their money and feel in control of their money and in control of their lives as a result.
Wonderful. Now, we'll get into that in a moment, but let's go back in time. You may have mentioned it last time in the podcast, but just tell us about your journey into advice. Yeah,
so I started as an accountant. I was encouraged by my dad to become an accountant. He's an accountant. And started working as an accountant and realised pretty quickly that it wasn't where my interest lay. I found that is probably more backwards looking. And the firm I was at had a financial advice and investment advice team, so I had the opportunity to move into a different team and found that was more interesting to me personally.
It's interesting the parents have such a big say in this, and I'm a parent of an 18-year-old, so I feel like I've got to have a say in it too. Yeah. But there's so many. I talk to people from the universities. They say that these students love financial advice, and then they go away in their semester, and they come back and they go, "Oh, no, I'm choosing accounting," because their parents have said to them, "No, you have to be an accountant."
Yeah,
it really is one of those things that I guess people just in general don't really get financial advice.
Yeah, I think it probably doesn't have nearly the same, I guess, reputation. You know, accountant, doctor, lawyer, these are all professions that everyone knows, teacher, all the others, you know.
Yep.
Whereas a financial advisor, I think you have to actually explain what you do to most people that you talk to.
Yep.
What does financial advice mean?
Exactly. Now tell us about that journey for you then when you first became an advisor.
So I started as an investment advisor. So I worked in a firm that specialised in self-managed super funds, and I did the investment advice. That was a process. I was there for about 6 years. And in that time, the firm turned more towards in-house products, which I gradually became. When I first started, there was sort of an asset allocation with a selection of products in every category, and some were in-house and some were not. And then it morphed into being almost exclusively in-house products. And I decided that I should probably move on at that point. Yeah.
Yep. And you've been there a while. So what was the stepping stone for you then?
So then I moved to a Fitzpatrick's Private Wealth, more boutique financial advice firm. I jumped from investment advice only to really holistic financial advice with that advisor that I was working for there. And he had a business that he had been running for 20 years. He had a book of clients that adored him and still do adore him. And, they bring him cakes and just really a really nice place to work and really good quality advice. I felt like very much about, what's the situation and how can we help you solve it? And that was really nice. It was about, I think there were maybe like 80 or 90 clients, him as the principal, myself as the advisor, and then another team member as well who was backing us up. And it was nice. It was really
wonderful.
good.
Were you the succession plan? I'm using inverted commas here.
No, I don't think I was. I would have liked to have been. And I think when I had my kids, I would have liked to have been the succession plan, but I think, and fair enough, now I know what goes into building a business. He wasn't prepared to hand it over despite my enthusiasm. And now as I've started something from scratch myself, I probably understand that perspective a lot more.
Yeah.
But then, I had my 2 kids and came, the idea of running the show had been planted in my mind, and I could see how nice that could be. And a couple of fairly close together stints of maternity leave. Maternity leave keeps your hands very busy, but your mind is often idle. Yep. And so I was able to think through a lot of what I wanted to do next. And so that was where that came from.
So it gave you a chance to do some planning. Did you work during maternity? Like, were you like 12 months stints, or did you have?
I did 6 months with each of my boys. In the 6 months that I did with my first, I also did the CFP final subject, so it wasn't as much of a break as it probably should have been. And then in the 6 months off with my second, I planned the business.
Yeah, because
so I probably should have given myself a bit more.
Sounds like you had plenty of spare time with two young kids around. It's usually a fairly busy time.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
Yeah. So you planned your business out, and then where did you start it straight away, or did you go back to work?
No, after my second, I came back from maternity leave into starting the business. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maternity leave, starting a business from scratch. Tell us about that moment.
My youngest was 6 months old. My eldest was 2. I started the business with 0 clients. I had this idea that it would enable me to have like balance and this lifestyle, and that I'd be able to keep it under control. And the reality was the exact opposite, as I think most people, I was pretty naive going into it. And I think that's
brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
It is absolutely brilliant to not listen to have any voices in your head that are putting out the flame.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it though.
So where did you start? What licensee were you with then? I've been
with Madison since the beginning.
So you were able to start a business with no clients
with Madison
and 2 young kids.
Yeah,
it's almost it's unheard of these days.
So it's a kind of a good story. Someone I knew in the industry introduced me to Anique, who was the CEO of Madison. And this person I knew in the industry also gave me the names of a couple of other people to talk to, other dealer groups to talk to. And I was having these conversations while I was pregnant with my second. And I met Anique, as it turned out, 2 days before I had my baby. So I was heavily pregnant, and pitching this idea to Anique that I was going to start a business in 6 months. I was just going to quickly have this baby and then get on with the job. And she backed me. She gave me a chance, and she gave me some really good advice. And there were a few things that she was like, you need to fix this, you need to fix this, you need to fix this. You need to come back and talk to me again when, once you've had the baby, because things can change. And but I did, and I got back in touch with her, and she gave me a shot at it, and made it possible, gave me an opportunity to get a few clients before the costs started crushing me.
Yeah, that's exactly right, because the costs are immediate for the licensee.
Yes.
So it's almost an investment in you.
Yeah, and it was very generous.
Yeah. Wonderful, good story. And okay, so tell us about those first few clients. How did you get them?
So first 1 or 2 were referrals from an accountant who's a friend and plays touch footy with my husband, and so that was very helpful.
Yep.
Got me going. I did some speaking early on as well with a group called Ladies Finance Club, and what their mission is to educate and empower women with their finances, and so they were running events. And basically I did a few investing 101 type presentations, and they were an awesome opportunity. Like they were, this friend of mine, Molly, who runs Ladies Finance Club, she's got like a marketing and events background, and she could fill a room and create a vibe and create a buzz. And then I'd jump up and do the investment stuff, try not to kill the buzz. And so that's where my next sort of few clients came from, and it's kind of gone from there.
So was Ladies Finance Club, was Molly a coach or?
No, Molly started the business. My understanding is Molly started it because she knew nothing about money, but was working in marketing in financial companies in London, and didn't know what they were talking about. So she got together with some girlfriends to try and figure it out. And then that kind of gathered some momentum, and they were like, actually, there was a lot of people trying to figure this stuff out. And so then she started putting on events in London, and then she moved back here, and now she does events in Sydney as well.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. And you stumbled across her, or how did you find her?
I knew, I was good friends with Molly's sister.
Right.
So when she came back from London, Molly's sister introduced us and said, you guys should figure something out together.
Excellent. So when you started out, you had an accountant and you had Molly as potential lead generation.
Yeah.
Was that something you harnessed, or was that something that Anik spoke to you about?
No, that wasn't something that Anik spoke to me about. Anik did give me advice on the referral relationship with the accountant for sure. I would, I sort of figured it out.
Yep, fair enough.
Desperation.
And tell me about starting the business and the business name.
Okay, so this was so I started the business with the name Flourix Wealth, and it took sort of all my guts and courage to start the business. And then the moment I opened the doors, my stepdad, who's a lawyer, called, was like, this is not unique at all. You've got a name that another financial planning business in Sydney is already using. You can't do this.
Yep.
And I just it had taken so much courage to get to that point. And the moment I put the first thing sort of on Instagram and I was just about to go live with the website, I just fell flat on my face. And I was devastated. And I felt so humiliated, even though no one would have noticed. Like, who would have noticed? So I very quickly came up with Flourix Wealth. It was kind of a on-the-spot decision. It's not perfect, but it is what it is, and it's doing the job.
So you're able to get you had the URL or the domain? I
didn't have the URL. I was looking for something that was available, basically.
Yep.
So yeah, it wasn't a particularly clever story, but it's all's well that ends well, right?
It's interesting sometimes when you have to make quick decisions. It's like, I just got to make a quick decision. Something's happened. I've thought about this other thing. Boom, make a change.
Yeah,
run with it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was that.
And they can mean a lot, and it can take a lot of time. But at the end of the day, it's probably you and the relationship that makes the difference.
Well, yeah, that's it. And I don't love it, but I associate it with the whole experience. But no one's ever commented on it. Yep. And I don't know if anyone even. I think probably half my clients don't even know what the business is called. They probably just think Rachel's their advisor.
Yep.
So
yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Okay, so you've started the business, you've kicked off, you've got a couple of clients. How did you grow it from there, and was it just you by yourself?
For a while it was me by myself, and did the events where I could, lots of coffees to try and build new, other referral relationships as well. Yeah, that was sort of how I worked it. Was
the target market the same?
The target market started out just really vague and broad. It was kind of, just anyone who'd work with me.
Yeah, anyone can pay.
Yeah, exactly. Not a great strategy. But as I started doing the stuff with Ladies Finance Club, I started to really find that was like a real sweet spot for me, and work I really enjoyed. Work, and people wanted to work with me. Young women who wanted a financial advisor. Wanted a young female financial advisor, and it worked. And so then I sort of focused a bit more on the relationships I was trying to build around that. And so from that, I started connecting more with other female professionals, so other female accountants and estate planners and financial advisors and things like that, who their client bases tended to be women as well, and they were often looking for a female advisor. And I kind of, it sort of happened fairly quickly, but it became clear that was who I was attracting, and that was who I was working well with. So
yep. And when you kicked that off, you did those presentations.
Yep.
Was there any set thing about that you're presenting on, or were you like, did you know what you wanted to talk about, or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I put hours into the presentations. Yep. Yeah. Like I created a whole slide deck on Canva. I spent, I had no clients, so I had all this time. I made this basically crash course in investing, and it was about a 45-minute presentation, and would sort of run through it.
So a lot of foundations of investing.
Yeah, exactly. What's an asset class? What's a risk profile? What's diversification? Really simple stuff.
So you could open your CFP books and go,
yep,
101.
Didn't even need to do that. You can pretty much Google it.
Yeah. Fair enough. And just again, it's all about building relationships at that point.
Yeah.
So tell us about the growth of your business over that time.
Yep. So probably like a lot of businesses, it started really slowly. Took me sort of 6 months to get my first couple of clients, and that was pretty nerve-wracking. And then by the end of the first year, I think I had about 17 or 18 clients. By the end of the second, I think I had about 40 odd.
Yeah, the classic apprenticeship stage, right?
Yeah. It just started to, and once you've got a few clients, then you've got more people who know you and who are talking about you, and so it starts to come together. I think about that. I think it's in Atomic Habits, the valley of disappointment. In like the compound interest curve.
Yep.
The gap between expectation and reality, that valley of disappointment where you think it's not working, but if you hang on, it's just around the corner that it starts to kick off. Yes. That was those,
Yes, I'm actually in the middle of. I've just started Atomic Habits. It was quite a good book.
Yeah.
Tell me about that process then. Well, getting through that first 6 months, you had a bit of time. Did you set up all of your the advice offerings that you have now? Did you set that up then, or was that something you brought on?
No, that's something that evolved.
Yep.
So I started out, I just worked out, like, it was just a trial and error process. I'd come from a firm where the client base was retirees, and the advice was really based around super and investments and fairly large sums of money. And then I was working with more like younger professionals or women who didn't have quite necessarily the same amount of wealth to manage. And so I had to figure out how, what was adding value and what wasn't, and how to present the information and how to serve, how to provide the advice basically.
Yep.
When it wasn't sort of the traditional retired wealthy person.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. The bread and butter.
Yeah, exactly.
For a lot of financial planners.
Yeah.
Tell me about then, so where you are now, tell us about what this evolved into. Tell us about your offering now to your new clients that come in.
Yep. So we basically, we work out with the client what their, which kind of path they should go on. One focuses first on cash flow. And so for clients who might come along and say, I'm making really good money, but I never seem to have anything to show for it, we'd probably start with like quite a deep dive on cash flow, setting up a budgeting system, making sure they've got the right bank accounts, giving them a structure for managing their money. And then depending on the circumstances, we'd probably also at that stage do insurance and super. And then it might be a sort of more of a coaching program that we help clients go through to save the money that then needs to be the beginning of their investment portfolio.
Yep.
And then kind of it becomes a more typical kind of advice relationship from that point onwards.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the word coaching because you do a lot of conversation around financial well-being and coaching.
Yep.
What does that mean for you?
I think that what I see that as meaning is more around holding people accountable, helping them set their own goals, and then actually, keeping up with those goals and creating a framework where I can help them to see whether they're on or off track. They know whether they're on or off track, and sort of taking those kind of 5-year goals and working backwards to say, well, if that's the 5-year plan, what do I need to do today? What's the one thing I can focus on today or this week that's going to make that a more achievable, or is going to keep me on that path?
Yep.
And that I see, I don't know if that's the right terminology, but I see that as more of coaching than advice. It's not necessarily got anything to do with products. It's more about, and I don't necessarily recommend you open this bank account over that bank account. In fact, I rarely recommend that. I'm just like, you need this many bank accounts for this strategy, and where you get them is up to you. Just
Yep.
Yeah. So that's where I could consider the coaching element of it.
Yeah, nice. And so you mentioned 3 areas. So you got cash flow spending plan as sort of one channel.
Yeah. So that would be for those. Yeah. Yep. For that group. Then another common first conversation is, I've got a few options and I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford a house in Sydney. Should I buy an investment property instead? Or should I keep pursuing that goal? And then in, all the other different competing goals or forks in the road that people have. And what we'll then focus on for those clients first is modelling and different scenarios. And so we'll help them to visualise the impact of different pathways that they might choose to go down. And it's not so much about me saying you should do this or that, but about helping them to see the longer term implications of their decisions. So if you do decide to take option A, will you still be able to do these other things that are also really important to you? And so then we'll start with, I call it a strategy paper, where we might look at 3 or 5 scenarios, show them the different outcomes of those. They might then say, actually, I like a bit of that one and a bit of that one. Can you show me what that looks like? And we'll do another one. And then once they're confident once we're both confident that we know what the big picture is, then we can get into the specifics of you should invest in this, or you should put this much money into super, or you should whatever.
Yeah, that scenario planning is really powerful, isn't it? From the point of view of you walk into a scenario planning session not knowing. So there's an element of like confusion, or you just don't know, and then you walk out of a planning session going, "Wow, I've got this direction. I know what's possible. I know what's I can do." And all of a sudden you're in such a powerful position or place. The client's in such a powerful position to be able to make some decisions.
Yeah, because it's so hard to and even with my experience and what we do, I can't visualize whether I can't do it in my head. Whether if they do X, Y, Z, they're still going to be able to do ABC in 20 years. I don't know until we start playing with the numbers. And then we can also have a broader conversation about the other pros and cons. So it might be that this option is going to make you the most money, but you're going to have to work twice as hard as this option, and you might have a better lifestyle in this one, or this might be way more money, but it's the riskiest, or it's the least flexible. And we can start to have those other conversations about whether this picture lines up with your values and all of that sort of thing. So
lots of risks and trade-offs conversations.
Yeah.
Do you talk to them about their values? Do you do any of that conversations around what their values might be? Or
not really. I'd like to do that better. That's something I think it would be good to weave in a bit more. We have the conversation more so about the scenario might be okay, well, this is you working at the current rate, or this is you working if you were to increase to 120%. Is that okay with you? But it's not actually really specifically what are your values. So that's something I could definitely do better.
Excellent. That's a really powerful stream, let's call it, of what you offer.
Yeah.
What's the third one?
And then the third one is, I think this is the conversation. I think everything's on track, but I just want that reassurance, and I need an extra pair of eyes, or it's gotten more complicated for me, or I'm not giving it the time it deserves. And that's your more kind of traditional, simple advice process. We might do 1 or 2 modelings like current and proposed, but that would be a client that knows kind of where their money's coming from, where it's going. They know what they're trying to achieve, and it's just about making sure that they're doing all of the things they can do to get there. And so that's the sort of the easy one.
Yeah. Well, what I love about those 3 streams is it's got nothing to do with products or what you do. It's got everything to do with what's going on, the conversation that the client's having in their own mind.
Yeah. And they're most of the initial, that first phone call where you say, what are you looking for? most clients will identify themselves as being 1, 2, or 3 in the first 30 seconds.
Yep. They'll identify themselves. You'll notice it. Do you say straight away, or do you just?
I don't say to them, "You're package A, you're package B."
Yep.
I just know from the conversation that I think this is probably going to be what's going to deliver the most value, and I'll talk them through that. I'll talk them through what the other options are as well. Sometimes we'll do cash flow first, and then scenarios, and then advice.
I was just thinking they all work really well together as a continuance.
Yeah, but not everyone needs you to start at the beginning with cash flow. Like you're gonna waste some people's time with that if they already know they don't want to spend that time. Or likewise, you can do a lot of time, put a lot of time into modeling. If someone knows what they want to achieve, it may not necessarily be the best use of your time.
Yep, and I guess could they pick and choose, have a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B?
Yeah, yep. And then it might be at a review that will say, you told me that you were spending X and you were really confident of that, but you don't have this amount of savings. So do you want to do a cash flow session? Should we make that more of a focus now? Or they might be a year or 2 in and all that modelling we did goes out the window because something happens and you start again.
Yeah. Now you mentioned sort of a triage call or a conversation to start with. What is your standard process if I was to come in as a new client?
So I would receive an email from you or intro to you from somewhere, and I would organise a first phone call, like 15 minutes. I try to keep it to 15 minutes, tends to go over. But that would be where I'm going to explain or find out about your situation, whether I think I can help. If I don't think I can help, then I'll let you know at that stage. I explain what the fees are at that point and say, would you like to book a first session? And then that session's complimentary. We go through kind of goals and map out the current situation. And then from there, I'll put together a proposal outlining, this is my understanding of your situation. This is my understanding of what you'd like to achieve. This is the advice I think you need. This is what I'm going to charge. And then at that point, usually what I'm going to charge is confirming what we've already previously discussed. And then at that point, they say whether they'd like to go ahead or not.
Yep. So they enter that first discovery meeting. What do you call it? I
call it a startup session, but
startup session. I love it. So they enter that knowing what the pricing is.
Yeah, I used to, because the pricing isn't set and it's based on how complicated I think things are going to be. So I used to save that conversation until after we'd done that first meeting. But then there's a lot of people that can't afford financial advice, unfortunately. And there's a lot of people that can afford it, but just won't pay for it. So it's better, I found after a little while, it's better to set that expectation up front. Most people won't then come to the first session if they've got no intention of going ahead. So you can save a bit of time.
Do you find, probably also coming from the accounting background, that when it comes to looking at what you charge versus the client's better position, is it generally always financial, or do you consider things like the confidence you get from being unsure to becoming confident, or like the intangibles?
I do try to factor that in a bit. Like, I try to factor that in. I try not to exclude people just because you don't have enough, X amount of money or income or something like that. Because if someone's telling you that they really need help and they're prepared to pay for it, like, and you can help. If you get, this might be someone with no money because they can't manage their cash flow, you can help and you can change the course, of their lives by doing so, and they want to do that.
Yep.
Then I guess I do try to factor that. I do try to consider that. Yeah.
Changing the pathway or the course of someone's life is such a huge, benefit of financial advice, and just to calculate it out in 1 year or one short-term time period is very hard to do, or hard to get across the actual benefit over the long term.
Yeah, definitely.
So you go through those. So you go through that startup session.
Yeah.
You've then told them what your fees are. Then, but sometimes you're not giving advice straight away. As you mentioned, you're giving a cash flow or coaching services.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, the client will go onto a monthly retainer. The fee structure is a monthly retainer, and so after signing the advice proposal, they start the direct debit straight away. We don't wait until the advice is presented or anything like that. We start working on things in the most logical order and following those different pathways we talked about. And then it might be a few months into the relationship before they actually get a statement of advice.
I guess that allows you not to have to rush the advice.
Yeah. Like you can't necessarily work out what is the right investment strategy for someone if you don't know what they're trying to achieve, when they're planning to pull that money out, or if you don't know how much they can contribute to that. Like, what is the right product for someone who's going to start with a big pool of money and add nothing to it would be completely different to someone who's going to start small and build it up quickly. And so you can't, I find that I can't jump to the SOA until I've actually done the first steps, because apart from those rare, really straightforward cases, which are not the majority. So yeah, that's how that ends up happening. And it does take a few months, but I don't think clients aren't coming to a financial advisor for a statement of advice.
Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of people lately that are saying it takes 3, 4, up to 5, 6 months before they actually present an advice piece, which is amazing. And you also mentioned habits earlier, and you sort of can't really get to know a client's habits unless you've spent some time with them, or you really look back at their finances over a period of time.
Yeah.
Understand their spending habits and their what they're likely to do in a down market, or whether it might be. Have they switched to cash at the wrong time in the past, all those sorts of things?
Yeah, that's all, really valuable, and will definitely dictate kind of what should be recommended.
Yep. And so when you're doing that cash flow coaching, getting people on track, understanding what they're spending, do you have any particular systems that you use?
It's pretty basic. I use the ASIC Money Smart budget spreadsheet to calculate essentials.
Yep.
It's a method which I've picked up from Ellevest, which is a US robo investor for women.
Yep.
And they have spoken in a few of their blogs about this one number method, where you basically help you figure out how much needs to go to essentials, how much needs to go to different goals, and then you've got one number left, and that one number is your number for the week or the month, however you manage, whatever time frame you use to manage your money. And then if you automate it all, then you don't have to think about all the other stuff. You just have to remember, if I don't spend more than $500 a week on fun stuff I don't necessarily need, then everything else will take care of itself. And if you've set up the automation, which is what we then make sure happens.
So an automation, pay yourself first?
Yeah. So the transfers out of your bank account before you get the opportunity to spend the money.
Excellent. First, pay yourself first, then the automation of fixed expenses.
Yep.
That you've done a fairly good budget on, and you can understand what it's going to be.
Yep.
Give or take.
Yep.
And then that one number per week to
stick to
fund.
Yeah, and never having more than that amount of money on the card that is your fun money card. So that then if you're midway through the week and you check your banking app, you know exactly where you're at.
Yep, and that's the key. Just focus on that one thing.
And that's the one thing you need to worry about.
Yep.
Everything else, if you implement the strategy, then everything else is taking care of itself.
Yep, it's set, but not forget, but set.
Yeah. You just remember that one thing.
Fantastic, and that's different for every person, and the time frame is different. Could be weekly or daily, or
Yep, exactly. So yeah,
it's interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day who said that they talk to the clients about daily spend.
Yeah,
or daily, saying like just to understand, because they can relate to those transactions more so than larger numbers.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that makes a lot of sense. I like to get it down to a week, because it's very easy to, a month's way too long for your fund money account. I think it's too long for me.
Yeah, big numbers are hard to calculate in your head, aren't they, when it comes to, for most people?
Yeah.
I always say that with politicians. I reckon they should stop talking in billions and tell everybody what that means to the individual person each week.
That's a great idea.
They go, wait, I'm spending that much? Oh, okay. Oh, no,
Does
I don't want to do that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, excellent. So that's the cash flow spending. Now, you mentioned that, so does everyone go on the same monthly amount, or you've got a different?
No, different amount. So it does depend a bit on that initial phone call and then that first session as to whether there's a lot of more or less complexity. So things that might make me charge more would be, so I'll charge more for a couple than an individual. Multiple super funds, a direct equity portfolio, multiple insurance products, basically those things, SMSFs, trusts, businesses, but being self-employed. These are kind of the things that I'll look out for that will make it harder for me to or make the advice more complicated or the process longer.
Yep.
And I'll try to factor that in. Yeah,
because it's interesting. The more complex, the more liability you have as well.
Yeah. Your ability to make a costly mistake goes up.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if you look at that you've just got a range you charge monthly.
Yeah, exactly. So the minimum is $550 a month, which works out at $6,600, and it goes up from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when you do a piece of advice, are you charging for that advice, or is that included?
That's part of the annual arrangement. Is we'll deliver you've got the problem, we'll try to solve it in the next 12 months, or we'll do what we can in the next 12 months.
Yep.
And that might involve a statement of advice, it might involve two, it might involve an ROA. That's not what they're buying.
Yep. And then it could be that you do a few different pieces of advice throughout the year rather than try and solve everything today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, talk to me about how this works on 12-month service agreements because of the timing if we're not giving the advice till a few months in.
Yeah, so that's really clunky and awkward, and that's one thing that's really not working. So the client will agree upfront from that advice proposal or engagement agreement to pay a monthly retainer. And then once their SOA is delivered, they'll then go on an ongoing service agreement, which will be for the same amount and the same monthly payment. The difference between those two documents confuses clients. And the other problem is that it resets the 12 months from the date that the SOA is delivered. But often it can take us months to get to that point of delivering the SOA. And so then we have this conversation with clients where they're like, why am I signing for 12 months if I signed up 5 months ago and didn't you say this was a 12-month agreement? And I'm like, yes, it is, but I still, so that's one thing that's not working. And that's one thing that it seems like a really simple thing to me, but it's really, I can't quite get it all to gel.
It is one of those consequences of, when legislation has moved through pretty quickly, and that sounds like a great idea. Let's put that in place.
Yeah. And it's fine for the clients that are intending to be there for the long term. And I've got lots of clients that will probably roll their annual agreements indefinitely, and that's fine. But there are definitely some clients, because a lot of my clients are younger, where they do only feel like they're, and part of what I'm offering them is, let's work together for 12 months. I'll teach you I'll help you put in place a structure and a system that you can probably then manage yourself for a few years, and you come back when your life changes.
Yep.
And so it doesn't work for them.
So how often are you seeing clients on the way through that first sort of, if you've seen them a few times, getting them their structure and their accountability done and their budget and their cash flow and their foundations.
Yeah.
Let's say you do a foundation SOA and you're looking after their risk and super, and then you move on to some, in 6 months' time when they've got more to invest, you want to do some investment. How many times have you seen them throughout the year?
Including the startup session, I probably do 3 or 4 meetings in the first 6 months. And then after that, it's 6 monthly review cycle.
Okay. So it's quite high touch.
Yeah. But it does ease off. And I warn clients, I'm like, there's a bit involved in the first 6 months, but it'll ease off, and it'll become easier to manage once we get this first bit out of the way.
How are you holding them accountable for those cash flow conversations throughout the year?
It'll be the first thing we discuss at each of those meetings. So we'll do cash flow first, and then it'll be the first thing we discuss in those meetings in the first 6 months. And then we'll go to the 6 monthly review, and hopefully by that stage they've given the system enough of a go that they know what to do and they're doing it. They're not all doing it, but they're at least trying. And then for some clients, we'll say, like, after the first 6 months or the second 6 month review, we might say, is this working? Do we need to put a bit more time into this? And for some clients where they're like, can we make this quarterly? Then I'll adjust the fee to match.
Yep. How do you go with asking those clients, and at what point for referrals or for recommendations or for a review?
Yeah. I'm terrible at that. I'm terrible at that. I've never asked for a referral. I've got no Google reviews. I need to pull my finger out.
Yeah, I've heard some really good success stories with Google reviews and businesses having a process in place to ask for a review, and then if it's a great review, asking them to fill out a Google review.
Yeah.
Tell us about the future. What does the future hold? Well, we've been through all the stuff you've created over the last, few years.
Yep.
What are you working on now?
I've got a team member working with me, Anita, and she is currently practice manager, and she will start as an advisor in February. And so, number one is
professional year.
No, she's already done the professional year.
Okay,
so
great.
no, thank God.
Yeah.
So basically the big plans right now is hire a practice manager or CSM to fill her role so that she can focus on being an advisor, and then find the clients to sustain 2 advisors.
Yes, that's the next thing. Yeah. Take on a person and then grow and take on a person.
Yeah.
So you've got 2 staff now. Oh, sorry, 1 staff member. You and 1 staff member. I've
got 1 employee. I've got 2 contractors working with me as well. They're based in India.
Yep.
And one's full time, one's part time. And I outsource paraplanning.
Yeah. So what are they doing in India? What part of the business are they working?
They're doing admin and ROAs.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. And then a paraplanner outsourced. And then
outsourced paraplanner for like the initial SOAs.
Yep. Fantastic. So a lot of growth, obviously, in that short space of time.
Yeah. Yep. It's been pretty busy.
Yeah. And so if we're sitting here in 12 months, what have you done in the next 12 months that you're really proud of?
In the next 12 months, what will I be really proud of? I'm going to try and get back to working 4 days a week.
Yeah, nice.
So I started the business with this idea of it being supportive of my lifestyle, and it hasn't worked out that way so far. Yet, exactly. And so 12 months from now, I'd like to be able to say that it's better aligned with my values and my lifestyle.
Wonderful. Excellent. So a lot to work on.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming and chatting to us about your journey. It's been a couple of years, and we look forward to chatting to you in a couple more years and seeing how it's all evolved. Now we've found out that you're going to be moving out of 4 days a week. It's going to happen. We're going to make it happen.
I hope so.
If someone wanted to continue the conversation with you, what's the best way for them to get hold of you?
Probably my website is the best way, if you can find it.
Yep.
It's www.Flourix, so FLOURIX.com.au.
Flourix.com, not Flourix Wealth, just Flourix.
No, just flourix.com.au.
.com.au. Wonderful. Rachel,
or LinkedIn.
Or LinkedIn, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for catching up. We wish you all the best in the future.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.